Hey, everyone out there. Thanks for joining me on this Saturday night. This is Mark. And if you are finding my channel for the first time, I've been around for a few years here at MarkRogersTV covering college football. And I've been meaning to do this a number of times that I've mentioned it. So for those of you out there that have seen me and watched my videos for a long time, you know that I've mentioned this a number of times that I would like to be able to get more content ideas, more channel ideas from you, and make some decisions on how to make this a better product, better content, and more effective in reaching larger audiences. So I appreciate your feedback, whatever comments that you have, whatever suggestions, whatever questions you have for me. I'm going to try to go from top to bottom, and I really haven't prepared anything, so I may miss a few things and have to circle back at a future date. But in terms of the live streaming, if you were around during college football season here at Mark Rogers TV, then you know that I went to instant analysis live streaming right after as many games as I could get to, typically 4 or 5 games on each Saturday, a Thursday night, a Friday night, that I would jump on right when the game ended and provide my instant analysis on the live stream. And look forward to doing that again this fall after games, and would bring on some great bloggers and broadcasters to provide their analysis, bringing on obviously bloggers that cover those particular teams. And so I want to do more of that and not just wait for the college football season, but to do that on a regular basis and possibly be a little bit more standard and regulated with my schedule so you know what's coming. I'm kind of all over the map to a certain extent. I've undertaken a huge project here with this channel in trying to cover all of college football. All of college football. As you can tell, looking through the thousands of videos, and I think the count is somewhere north of 6,000 videos since I started, you can see that I do my very best to cover all of college football. And if it appears as though I isolate on a particular team or group of teams, it's because I am able to find quality contributors for those teams. That doesn't mean I'm ignoring, let's say, Wisconsin. I didn't cover a whole lot of Wisconsin this year in regards to having regular team reports and analysis and recruiting updates and all of that. I would certainly watch the Wisconsin games and provide instant analysis, which I believe I did after the Michigan game, the Big Ten championship game, and the bowl game against Miami. So I watched a lot of Wisconsin football, and I believe I also did after I watched the Wisconsin-Iowa game. But in terms of providing Wisconsin football analysis on a regular basis, team reports, recruiting, analysis on coaching changes, on the coaching staff, and all of that, really dissecting the personnel, I haven't been able to locate a Wisconsin football expert to do that. I can certainly take that on, and that's what I did for the first couple of years I had this channel. And I'll go down this path. Let's start there. In terms of the content, and my approach to the content is to provide smart analysis. I'm all over the internet and all over YouTube looking at different people's channels. And with all due respect to a number of people, I'm not talking about everyone, like everyone's doing a horrible job out there, because there are certainly some very knowledgeable, insightful, talented people out there covering sports and covering college football in particular. But most of it's garbage. Most of it's trash. Most of the stuff I read, most of the stuff that I see is not good. It's from people that don't follow the game, don't understand the game, and try to basically just spew out a bunch of cliches and tell us the standard stuff that we hear all the time about limit the turnovers and pound away the ground game, or it's just silliness and it makes no sense. So anyway, not going to get into other people's channels because I have seen some very quality people as well. But it was my thought initially, so let's start at the very beginning. I launched this channel, Mark Rogers TV, and the reason I didn't name it anything specific to college football was because I wanted to talk about whatever I wanted to talk about. And most likely that wasn't going to go outside of sports. But if you go way, way, way back to the origin of Mark Rogers TV, I talked some NFL because I love the NFL. I love Major League Baseball. I talked baseball, and that was pretty much it. I think there might have been one Tiger Woods commentary in there, but besides that, it was all football and baseball because those are the sports that I love. And then I determined, okay, this is just way too much to take on. Way too much to take on. For the baseball fan, I'm going to talk baseball all summer, and then all of a sudden football's going to take over, and I'm going to leave them high and dry, and there's no way a baseball fan's going to hang with me. Or the NFL. There's just no way to do it as one person with a full-time job. And I'll give you an idea of what I do in terms of a career in a few minutes. But there would be no way that I could do an all sports channel and do it any kind of justice to keep a subscriber. There's very few people out there that just love to hear all sorts of sports coverage all the time. You love your team. You love a series of teams usually. And sports is very regionalized and localized. There are certainly national teams, and there are certainly national stories and topics to cover, and we try to hit those as much as possible because that's ultimately what's most important to the masses. So getting back to the Mark Rogers TV, that's why I named it. I wanted to brand myself, wanted to get my name and myself out there, but I also didn't know what exactly I was going to talk about. So within a couple months, I decided college football. I thought it was the best sport to attack because I love it. It's arguably my favorite sport. It's tough for me to differentiate college, NFL, but I probably love it a little bit more than the NFL. And also because it's a better sport to debate than the NFL is and that baseball is. And unfortunately, I love baseball, but it's dying. So I honed in and focused on college football because at the time you had the BCS. And so that was a great arguing point. Now that you've got the playoff, that's an arguing point. There's nothing to argue about the NFL playoffs. The teams are determined by a system, and there's nothing to argue. There's nothing to discuss or debate. And just because of the regional rivalries and the rivalries in college football that are so much more intense, more passionate than the NFL, that was an easy decision of mine. College football. Okay, so I launched a college football channel and thought, man, I don't want to lock myself down to a team or a conference. And I didn't realize when I started, people that don't know college football or really follow it, maybe they just watch the games during the season, they don't realize that it's 24/7, 365. There's always something to talk about. I don't know how many people I have that make comments to me, okay, college football season's over. What are you going to talk about now? I'm like, are you kidding me? Coaching changes, not just head coaching changes, coaching staff changes, recruiting never stops. Need to analyze schedules of 130 FBS teams, or at least the Power Five. That's 68 teams right there. As you've seen on off seasons, going back, starting last season and going back before that, I try to get to as many off season topics as possible. I rate and rank the conferences, and I'll do that in a few weeks. I have delivered top 10 lists at every position in college football. I've delivered top 5 lists within conferences, top 5 ACC quarterbacks, top 5 ACC running backs, wide receivers, offensive linemen, on down the line. So that's like 9 or 10 positions per conference. Do the math. It's a ton of videos. And as you can see, 6,000 videos. But I think that hurts me sometimes because I sometimes get the idea that, let's say I have on a Georgia contributor. Savannah Lee Richardson right now is a Georgia contributor of mine. You can catch her on Bulldog Illustrated. I have her on a couple times a month. We talk Georgia football. Okay. The Georgia football fan might come across our videos and say, I'm going to follow this guy's channel. I'm going to subscribe. He delivers Georgia football content. But then maybe he sees Miami, Ohio State, USC, Alabama, Auburn, all these other teams. He's like, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see all these notifications for all these other college football teams. So that particular person just wants Georgia football. And so I think that hurts me to a certain extent that I'm broad and I try to cover everyone and I try to deliver credible content. I'm not a silly, goofy guy. I like to have fun, and I would like this channel to be a little bit more fun. And I have some fun and funny ideas, but they take time to develop and they take time to script and to play out the skit and set it all up. And as you can see, I'm delivering a ton of hopefully quality, I believe so, and quantity because I'm trying to get to all these teams. And I want to make sure that I am seeing any comments that are out there because I certainly want to hear from you as well. So I'm pulling up the feed right now to make sure again that I'm not missing any comments from you. So I'm going to talk as long as I can and try to cover every bit of this channel and the content I'm delivering. And I want your suggestions because I want to hit the topics that you guys want me to hit. And I so much want to start a mailbag as well. And I should have my glasses. Fortunately, they're close by. All right, so I can see some comments now. Okay, a what if series from NCS Fanatic. Yes, this is a faithful viewer. I appreciate it. Ohio State fan, a what if series. Man, that takes some time to think through. But if you want to put up some suggestions as well in terms of what I could take on, I'll certainly think about that. College football fan from England, love your channel. I appreciate that, Ethan. Thanks for writing in. Navy Thomas, of course. So you host a live stream, but don't answer questions. I'll get to them. All right. Yeah, I got the glasses on. So you never see the glasses, but yeah, I wear contacts. But I got to have the glasses on tonight to see what's going on here. You should cover hockey. No. So here's my I'll go into. Let me start with who I am, what I've done in the past. I watch your other videos, even when you're not talking about Ohio State. I appreciate that. And I would like to let you guys know when I am going to have a stream up, do a live stream. And unfortunately, I tried that a couple weeks ago, and I sent out the notification. I think you got it because I tested it out with a few people, and they said they got the notification, but then I couldn't find the link to be able to use the correct link. So I didn't want to frustrate you guys and have you click on the link at like 8 o'clock Saturday night. And then all of a sudden I'm using another link because I can't find that one. So I'm going to work on that. But for right now, when I do a live stream, sorry, I'm going to surprise you. I'm just going to jump on until I can figure out the scheduling portion of that. So Ethan writes, thoughts on upcoming Miami Hurricanes quarterback battle. So you probably noticed that I do a lot of Miami, and that's not by choice. That I'm trying to cover everyone, and I'm trying to do it in a way that's equitable. But of course, there are more fans of certain teams than there are other teams. So I'm going to cover more Michigan football than I am Northwestern football. George writes in, can we get more on Florida State? Yeah, I really need to hit on Florida State. I tracked down a guy from, I believe, 24/7 Sports, and we had a discussion on Florida State right before the season started. And he was great. He loved it. But then he heard from his bosses, and don't hold me to 247 Sports. He might have been Rivals. I forget where he was from. I can't remember his name, but he did a great job. We had a great conversation. He loved it. And unfortunately, his company wouldn't let him come back on. So that's happened a few times where I've had really great guests, and then they've said, sorry, Mark, I can't come back on. Yes, Ethan loves Cam and Alonzo. They do a great job. Alonzo, I'm in constant contact with those guys. They're just very busy. They're great about coming on. They love to come on, and we love to talk Miami football. Florida State will bring down the value of your show. All right, Uptown Yankee. I got to do Florida State. What can I say? Got to touch Florida State. And I probably did it. I know I did a disservice this season to Florida State. Auburn, some other teams out there. I really hit again, I've got certain contributors, and then, I do my own analysis. I am not just a host or facilitator, and that's another part of this as well. I didn't want to just become, because I'm having all these guests on, become just a facilitator and host. I want to provide my own analysis, and I try to do that as well. And I appreciate you guys with your comments and questions here. Keep them coming. Any suggestions you have for the channel, I will take them. So we've got a what if series, and we've got Florida State, and of course Miami, and we've got tons of Miami content. And I actually talked to somebody else who's a Miami writer recently, and they're going to come on the show as well. So yeah, so getting back to where were we? We were talking about the start of the channel. So at the very beginning, when I decided college football, then my next decision was, okay, I cover everyone. I'm going to cover as much as possible. I had predictions, game previews. I would try to select the 5 or 10 biggest games of the week and research those and deliver some decent previews, and then the post-game analysis and hit all the topics. And there was a lot of conference realignment. At the time that I started the channel, Nebraska had joined the Big Ten, and there were the Missouri, Texas A&M changes going to the SEC. And so I hit on that. Have you heard of David Biddle? He's on Bucknuts with Steve Hellwagen. Oh, yeah, Steve that I had on the other day. Yeah, Hellwagon. I think you might like him. So we got David Biddle. So the other thing here is, if you guys know of writers, broadcasters, bloggers that you would like me to have on, throw my way, and I will ask them on. I can't drag them on here if they don't want to come. And a lot of the bigger people obviously have huge Twitter followings and feeds, and the messages get lost. So those are difficult. But I have had on, if you haven't caught them in the past, Phil Steele. Peter Burns is a great guy from the SEC Network and hosts College Football Live from time to time on ESPN. He comes on a regular basis. He will come on pretty much anytime I'd like him to. So he is just tremendous. Jerry DiNardo, the Big Ten Network, I've had him on a couple times. Would love to see more individual player profiles, like who you might think would break out this season. Breakout players. Love it. That's a great idea. So I'll let you know as I get back to the origins of Mark Rogers TV, and the reason I bring on so many guests is that, I was trying to do it all on my own. And I thought, sure, I wasn't getting complaints that, hey, you previewed Michigan, Wisconsin, and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I didn't hear that. Do you talk to Scott Wolf? I don't. I reached out to Scott. Actually, I had no idea who he was until about 2 days ago. And I saw him somewhere, and I reached out to him, and hopefully I can track him down, but I'll try. As you can see, Uptown Yankee, Mark Rogers All-America team. Yes, Mark Rogers All-America team. Got it. My All-America team. I would be interested, for anybody who's on here right now, I'm just curious to know how long you've been watching, because there's a ton of this stuff that you're bringing up that's close to what I've done a few years ago, and I've just gotten so busy with doing the stuff that I'm doing as I've kind of forgotten about it. And I have done a lot of this stuff. So when you talk about player profiles, current player profiles I need to do, what I did last year was, I noticed recruiting is just huge. And I'm not a huge recruiting guy. That's why I reach out to other contributors to bring on the recruiting experts. I watch the games, and I'm just immersed in the games and the current teams. It's like the NFL. I'm not a huge rumor guy and gossip guy in terms of the NFL draft. Same with recruiting. I just can't do that. Scott is a great blog. I just started watching this and subscribed last week. Thanks, Luke. I appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoy Mark Rogers TV. And so basically, getting back to the origins there, I was trying to cover everything. It wasn't like I was having complaints, like people were saying, you don't know what you're talking about. But I thought, okay, what's going to impact the audience here in a positive way if I have on a Michigan guy to preview the Michigan-Wisconsin game? He knows his team much more than I can ever know, because I'm following 65 teams. He knows his team much better than I do. bring on the Michigan guy and we'll talk up the Michigan-Wisconsin game or the Michigan offensive coordinator hire. So that's when I started to bring on contributors. Plus, I thought, hey, I want to spread the word about my channel. And as you may have seen, I got a ton of SB Nation people on. And they, at least in the early portions of when I would have these SB Nation people on, they would post my videos on SB Nation. So that was tremendous exposure for me and my channel. So that helped. Yeah, Johnny, I recognize the name, Johnny. You're a faithful viewer. I appreciate it. I appreciate the comments, and you guys, I recognize a ton of these names, and you guys come on and give great comments. I try to get to as many as possible, but I'm trying to do all this. So I try to get to the comments as many as possible, but I noticed that you guys mix it up and you guys are more entertaining with your comments back and forth and getting into debates. So sometimes I just stay out of it, but I read the comments definitely. He probably knows his team much more than Jim Harbaugh does. Yeah, Jimmy's having some issues. His PR is going to be really down for the next 8 or 9 months, and there's not really anything he can do about it because Michigan fans have seen enough, and they just want W's. So trips to Rome, hanging out in the treehouse with the recruit, or helping his sister with needlepoint or whatever it is. That's not going to help Jim this time around. They want wins. Yeah, I've been watching for 2 or 3 years, been watching since this past summer. Outstanding. Thank you. Uptown Yankee fan, or just you'll have to fill me in on that one. Scott, it's a great blog. Yeah. Okay. NCIS Fanatic 21. I think I started watching you back in April or May of 2017. So it's not been a year there. So it's almost going to be impossible for you guys to go way back. I'm sometimes amused by how many people watch old videos, and I'll get comments and it'll be on the 2014 top 10 quarterbacks in college football that I produce. So I really want to hit that this year, and I didn't finish this past season. I feel bad about that. I started knocking out my top 10 at every position and didn't quite get it. Wednesday nights used to be a big blowout night here on Mark Rogers TV, where I would do an SEC breakdown show for an hour, ACC breakdown for 60 minutes, and the Big 12 for 60 minutes, and the Pac-12 for 60 minutes, everything but the Big 10. And because I had all those contributors, and we did 60-minute shows that were really good with some great contributors. Uptown Yankee from the Bronx, live in Miami. I have never been to Miami. The furthest south I've ever been is Fort Lauderdale, twice for spring break, when I had some buddies that lived down there. And so that's why I decided to have so many contributors come on. Do you realize, and you guys are going to realize this because you watch, and I ask this very humbly because I don't expect you to do it, and certainly, just take this for what it is. But if you think about it, if you enjoy the channel, if you know of other people that love college football or love a particular team, just tell them about what we do here. Do you think Dwayne Haskins or Tate Martell, that's the glasses aren't even working, Tate Martell should start this season? So I had this discussion with Steve Hellwagon. You may want to check out that video. You know what? NCIS Fanatic 21, that video is coming. So the other thing you guys have probably noticed is, so I used to have conversations with contributors and we'd talk for 30, 40 minutes. So you guys probably know Cam Underwood from State of the U. I'll use him as an example. Cam comes on and I can't get the guy to shut up, but I mean that in a very good way. He's great. So we'll have a 40-minute conversation. I used to just, boom, post that 40 minutes. And then I started thinking, if somebody just wants to hear about the quarterback battle at Miami and they don't care about all this recruiting and scheduling and offensive coordinator change and the running backs coach left, they're going to be searching all over the place for that. Plus, I just figured, hey, if you love Miami football, I'm going to get some more clicks if I knock this down with people's attention span being what it is, instead of a 40-minute video podcast. If I knock this thing down to just whatever the topics are. Maybe there's 7 topics and each video is going to be 4, 5, 6 minutes. So you probably noticed that I have long conversations with these people. Then I carve up and edit the individual topics. The issue with that is that it takes forever. I right now am probably about 25 videos behind. So I have had USC and Stanford and Ohio State, Clemson, Texas, all these people on recently, and I'm not done editing all that stuff. And it just takes forever. And during the season, I'm up all night trying to edit this stuff. So I've got some ideas on how I might change that coming up. And I want to get to these comments here, and then I'll get back to my thought. Quarterback offseason battles. Okay, Johnny, got it right there. Quarterback battles. We will hit that. Dwayne Haskins or Tate Martell? I didn't answer you, did I? So Dwayne Haskins is the guy that proved it against Michigan. So that's a limited sample size, but 6 for 7, considering some of the throws that he made down at the big house. I would think, and Steve Hellwagon with 247 Sports agreed with me in regards to he's got a slight advantage. It's still an open competition. And I'm guessing from the comment here, you don't think Joe Burrow is going to be around. And that's going to be his decision. That's going to be his crossroads this spring. Joe Burrow, Ohio State backup quarterback. Can I truly compete here? If not, he might be gone this summer. Luke writes, I've been looking for a great college football YouTube channel, and I've enjoyed this channel so far. I grew up a huge USC fan because my brother played on the team 2005 to 2010. Did he? Who would that have been? Garrett. Last name of Garrett, 2005 to 2010. You'll have to let us know. Keely Yor. Talked to her for the first time. Had her on just last week, and we talked to USC football. She is from uscfootball.com. Her boss, Ryan Abraham, he comes on from time to time. We talk USC football. I also have on Chris Swanson from Rivals to talk USC, and I'm trying to add more and more people. So if you see where I have like a Cam Underwood who talks Miami, and he seems to be my regular Miami guy, but I bring on other people, it's not because I've grown dissatisfied with Cam. It's just I want to provide different perspectives, and maybe I can't get a hold of a particular person. They're busy, so I want to bring on different perspectives as well. So I'm trying to bring on as many people as possible. Do you guys have a guess for how many media contributors? So don't count. I didn't have any coaches on last year. That's another thing I could get to and tell you guys about, because I don't think you guys have been on long enough to know that I've interviewed probably 12 to 15 FBS coaches. I sent a letter to all the sports directors in the nation asking that their coach come on. And you can imagine what a shot in the dark that is to get Nick Saban or Urban Meyer. Well, those guys didn't obviously come on, but I would say Sonny Dykes was probably the highest ranking in terms of him running Cal. And obviously he's now at SMU, but Sonny Dykes came on a few times. Gary Anderson, when he was at Oregon State, came on a few times. And that, I believe, is something I'm going to pursue again, even though it's very time consuming to write these letters, follow up with phone calls, try to track these guys down, and try to find a perfect time, because these coaches are very busy. And for them to come on to a platform like mine takes a whole lot of work, but I think it's worth it. Okay. I'll go to some other questions here. Like what you did with your Rose Bowl video coverage with Cam. Watched all of them. So when you say Rose Bowl, you must be talking about the Orange Bowl. So yeah, Orange Bowl. Appreciate that, Ethan. So NCIS Fanatic 21, I have a feeling Joe Burrow might transfer. It appears that way. It appears that way. I think Dwayne Haskins has, I said, like a 60-40 shot. I think it's probably a little bit better than that. I think unless he's going to have to be outplayed by not a huge margin, but a decided margin this spring. Luke writes, Nick Garrett, walk-on linebacker behind Brian Cushing, Clay Matthews, and May Malaluga. Those three guys, Malaluga. Yes, I'll get it out correctly. Yeah, those guys were studs. Obviously, your was it your brother? Luke was there at USC when they compiled some of the best talent ever in college football, ranking right with Miami. Some of their short stints of dominance in the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s. Yeah, that was just amazing. Uh, Valdis Mosley, I hope I didn't butcher your name. Valdis writes, Mark Rogers, where is your shameless promotions backdrop poster? You are the voice of college football on social media. I appreciate that so much. And it's funny because either you made that statement or somebody else recently that told me, hey, you're the voice of college football. And they just said it in kind of a matter of fact kind of way, not like saying, you're the voice of college football. They were asking me a question or making a comment. Just put that in there. And I very much appreciate that. Uh, but it got me to thinking, and I mentioned this to a friend, and he said, you got to run with that. You've got to run with that. Uh, Voice of college football, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. The other issue I think I'm having, and if anybody out there knows search engines and how YouTube, and not just YouTube, but the internet work, do you think my name, Mark Rogers TV, do you think the name of my channel hurts me? Because if you do a search for college football talk, Mark Rogers TV is not going to come up. That's one of the reasons I tagged it with college football. And I hate to give up my name. It's kind of near and dear to me. It's a little sentimental thing because it's been, wow, it's been 8 years that I came up with this name, and I just like it. But at the same time, if it's going to be better for me to go with another name that's more searchable, because again, if you search college football talk or college football, Mark Rogers TV doesn't come up. I thought maybe tagging it with college football, Mark Rogers TV college football would help. And I don't know that it has. I think I've made, so to give you guys an idea of the growth here. In 2000, I'll go back to 2015. I don't want to bore you with a ton of numbers. You guys can probably tell I'm a bit of a stats geek. I'm not a mathematician, but I'm a stats geek. 2015, I had 159,000 views. 159,000 views. I should get the whiteboard out for this. The whiteboard has gone into retirement. And if you've watched me for a long time, you'll know that I used to have the whiteboard up all the time. And it will make an appearance here in about a month. When I get the conference rankings down and run through all the seedings and the comparisons, I'll get the whiteboard back out. Maybe I should just write right on there. And I know you guys have suggestions about a set. Yeah, believe me, people write about that all the time. Okay, so where was I? The whiteboard. Now I completely lost track of where I was. I'm sure it'll pop back into my mind here. Where's your shameless promotion? Yes. Then we also have coach interviews would be awesome. Coordinators too. The coordinators, that's a good idea. That's a good thought because the coordinators might be more accessible for obvious reasons. They're not running the program. The coordinators, yeah. Get some coordinators on here. So in the past, again, I don't think you guys were around, the people watching right now. I don't think you were around for this. But I've had on head coaches from Tulsa, South Alabama, Oregon State, Cal, Air Force, Utah State. I'm missing several, but I've had on about 12 to 14. I forget now. Many of them, most of them don't have the job anymore. We know how college football head coaches move on and typically get fired. So Matt Wells at Utah State is still there. But yes, Blankenship got fired at Tulsa. Joey Jones just retired or left South Alabama. And the rest of the coaches, Gary Anderson has moved on from Oregon State. Of course, Sonny Dykes let go at Cal. So all the coaches that I've had on, excluding, I believe, Matt Wells at Utah State, and that was just a few years ago, are gone. Okay, so Luke writes, yes, I found this because of a search for USC football. They might be a better name for sure, unfortunately, but I think you have great potential. I would love to help you out in any way. I appreciate that, Luke. If you have any suggestions for me, I am not a know-it-all when it comes to anything, even college football, even though it may seem like that. I was so adamant about the playoff this year, and you guys know what I mean, is that a ton of people obviously criticized me for that, but I think I was largely misunderstood, and maybe I'll get to that in a second. So again, yeah, that's what I was on the topic of when I got distracted, was search engines and finding Mark Rogers TV, because 159,000 views for the year in 2015. And then 2016, I had 409,000 views. So that increased from 159 to 409, that's tremendous. And then last year in 2017, I had over 1.1 million views, which is tremendous. But so I appreciate the growth. You guys have been awesome. I love the support. I appreciate it so much. But you guys, I think you have an idea from seeing all the videos I'm creating, how much I'm putting into this. And so I need to make some tough decisions. I need to get a better bang for my buck. And so I'm just trying to figure that out. Who else do we have on here? You used to have the college photos. So yeah, I used to be in another part of my house, and I thought, what am I going to do? I know what I was doing. I was cleaning out my garage. I have Sports Illustrateds from 1979 on. Not like everyone, because I've stopped getting them at certain times, but I've got probably 90% of the Sports Illustrateds. And I thought, man, I got all these magazines. They're in pristine condition. What am I going to do with them? And I thought, look at all these beautiful college football pictures. And so that's when I came up with I spent hours taping together a collage of pictures. And I got to tell you, Uptown Yankee, I just didn't like it. I left it up there. I only left it up there for a month or two just because I thought I put too much work into this, but I just didn't like it. And I don't like this. I've got a couple ideas. So you can either go the television professional set look, like where you've got the desk and it looks like a TV studio. You can go that route, or you can go the radio route, where you look like you're Colin Cowherd, although he's got kind of a radio/studio look. Like TV studio look is the overall look. Then his desk with the mic that drops down looks like a radio booth. The old Mike and Mike set when they were in the radio booth. You can go that look where you're not really addressing the camera all the time. You're just doing your thing and you're looking at laptops, and you approach it as a radio show that a camera is just kind of looking in on you. You can do it that way. So either the TV set, the studio look, or the radio look. Or you can go the route of having a bunch of memorabilia and junk behind you. And I don't really want to do that. That's suggested to me all the time. Put up helmets and photos and jerseys. And I'm not really big into that either. But that's another way to go. The look that I really like, but it doesn't really fall in with college football or sports, is sometimes you'll see these YouTubers, these people that produce really nice videos, and they just go with a clean, crisp look. So imagine this camera being much further back. I just lost my electric here, so I better put that back in. Imagine the camera being further back and seeing the entire set. So I'm sitting at a black desk, and imagine that being black and shiny with my laptop sitting there, and everything's like really crisp and clean and kind of new age, state of the art, modern looking. And I've just got this white backdrop that just, and it's lit. And I wear something that, I'm going to wear the same stuff that I wear now, but typically I'm going to wear stuff that's going to stand out against that. And people that I sell that to, they don't like that, but I see YouTubers that do this and they love it. I like a desk and whiteboard. Yeah, we could go with a whiteboard and have it up there all the time. I could go the Woody on, what's the show on ESPN? I should know. I work for them. that constantly has the sayings up there. All right, I don't want to lose track of these questions. Ethan writes, any content coming on tonight's East-West Shrine game or upcoming Senior Bowl? East-West Shrine game, Senior Bowl. So speaking of that, some of you may have seen that a few days ago, I posted a video. Number 25, UCLA Bruins, the 25th most successful school currently producing NFL players. So I'm watching the NFL playoffs last weekend, and it hit me. Well, this is a great debate. You hear it all the time. We produce the best wide receivers in college football to the NFL. We produce the best this. We're DBU, all that. So I thought, okay, I'm going to run the top 5 colleges currently that produce the best NFL players, or the top 10. Well, I started researching and looking while I'm watching the NFL playoffs, and I got to a list of 25. So it's going to be, and I could get right to it, and we'll produce a couple tonight. The top 25 schools in producing quantity and quality of current NFL players. So that's what I'm working on right now. Boy, it's going to be difficult for me to hit the East-West Shrine Game or the Senior Bowl. I've got Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama possibly coming on tonight. So we'll see if he's been following that. But I'll look into it. I found this because of a search for USC football. Okay. Would love to see highlights of teams when you talk about them. So that's another thing that I can do. Maybe not necessarily highlights, Luke, because highlights, I can get into some issues with copyrights, but I should show pictures. But again, this is going to take time away from the content. So do you want more content, or do you want less content that's a little bit better crafted? So I did that. I tried that. So I use iMovie. I've got a MacBook Pro right here, and I've got a MacBook Air right here, and I use iMovie to produce the videos to equalize the audio. Unfortunately, most of the guests that I have on will use iPhones or won't have a mic, and so I've got to go through the process of messing around with audio and making cuts, and then I put on the music and the intro. And so there was a video a few days ago that I produced that I started messing around with. I believe it was Alabama's NFL draftees video. And I put on pictures of Bo Scarborough and Calvin Ridley and Deron Payne. And so I can do that. In terms of having highlights, I've got a buddy who's in production. He worked at ESPN with me for a long time. He now runs his own production company, and he did a show live for me for about 16 or 17 weeks, probably before you guys were watching, about a year ago. And it was great because it was a live show, and he fancy graphics, and he could do all sorts of things and bring guests on. And we ran highlights, and YouTube flagged it. So it was fine that I courtesied them, and YouTube was fine with that, but I can't make any money off those videos because then the advertising money goes to the outlet that provided the highlights. All right. Mark Rogers TV channel ideas. Yes, that's what I'm asking for right here. Would love to see highlights. I like a desk and a whiteboard. Okay. Preloaded highlights running in one small corner over your shoulder. So I need some type of a switcher to do that. But I will take note of that. Highlights over the shoulder. So you guys have probably seen my Michigan guy, Steve Dace, Michigan podcast. So he produces a Michigan podcast that comes out once a week. And again, it's the balancing between quantity and quality. So he produces one podcast a week. It's on YouTube, and it's on all the audio platforms, and it's well produced. And he's got a ton of help. He's got like 5 guys working for him. And so they have highlights on, they have graphics, they do the full-blown thing, but he's producing one podcast a week. You guys see how many videos I'm producing. So I'm just getting it out there. Good morning from Tokyo, Japan. George, where can we send our ideas after this live video? Keep up the good work, Mark, and go Knowles. George, yes, I'm trying to cover Florida State. I will do my best. I don't have a Florida State contributor right now. So George wants FSU, even though you didn't say it here, somebody else noted that I need to do a better job with Florida State. If you would like to write to me, you can pretty much respond to any video. If you would just like to leave a comment to a video, if you follow me, just click on a video, leave a comment. I look at all the comments. I will see your suggestions there. But thank you so much. More recruiting news and signing day stuff. Okay, recruiting and signing day. Last year on signing day, if you go back a year and you can dig up those videos, I blew out signing day. I went crazy prior to signing day night, and the couple days after. I bet I produced, I don't know how many videos, 100 on National Signing Day, and I tried to get to as many teams as possible. But on the night of signing day, this was so much fun. It was crazy, but it was fun. And this is when my buddy from ESPN, the guy with the production company, was helping me. We did a live signing day special last year, and I was on live for 2.5 or 3 hours, just bringing on bloggers to just give me like 10 or 15 minutes on their team and off. I had like 33 guests on that night. All right. I would say more content, by the way. The quantity of NFL players produced in either Alabama or LSU. However, when you talk about the quality of NFL players, it's definitely the Miami Hurricanes. So are we talking about currently? I would argue that point, Valdez. In terms of all time, Miami is in the running. No question. Mark Rogers works hard. I try. So a lot of people credit me for my hard work. I appreciate that. I would like it to be just, I want you to like it, whether it's hard work or not. Just want it to be effective. And I don't expect you guys to agree with me all the time. So I took a ton of hits for my approach to the college football playoff, in my opinion. And I think it's good to disagree. And I think it's, if I was running a channel and everybody loved what I had to say, in my opinion, then there might be something wrong with that. But I took the stand, and I believe you guys will understand the difference here. I never said, and I was accused of this many times, I never said that Alabama was not the best team or not one of the 4 best teams. That never came out of my mouth. I even picked Alabama to win the national championship game against Georgia. That wasn't the deal. I said I believed, based on conference championship and a better win resume, that Ohio State earned the playoff spot because I believe in conference championships. I wasn't rating the 2 teams against each other. I hope everyone understands that. I know that not everyone does because I've read the comments. More recruiting and signing day. I would say more content. Yes, I got to that. Have you seen Sports Gaming One or College Football Lifer before? I don't believe so. I can look up those guys and or ladies, and you can let me know why you would want me to look them up. Okay. Please, Mark, it's the dry season for college football. We need more than 1 video a week. Okay. Valdez, if you're paying attention, I deliver a lot more than 1 video per week. I'm delivering like 1 an hour. So I think I'm in good shape there. How long until an 18 playoff? Okay. We've got television contracts in place. Unfortunately, that means that we are going to see a 14 playoff for the near future. ESPN signed a 12-year deal, and that doesn't mean that that can't be amended. So we don't have to wait 12 years necessarily, and that was signed prior to the first playoff in 2014. So we've had 4 years of playoffs. So there's still 8 years left in the television contract. But I don't think that we have to wait that long before the conference commissioners, and they're really the guys that control this. They are going to be the ones that have to sign off on an 18 playoff. Let's see. What do we have here? Why did Navy's head coach not take the Arizona job? That's a good question. I don't know that. And I believe, and I made the comment when I had on Shireen Ryan from Zona Zealots on Fansided, that I believe that he was the best candidate from the Arizona perspective, that he was going to do the best job. I believed in him as a head coach. Kevin Sumlin has made some moves with personnel, and between the recruiting process, which he's done a great job, and developing players, and also having players fit the system, and not just the system, but the culture. Kevin Sumlin's had some issues with that. That's why so many guys have left. He needs to review how he deals with these kids. I don't know if he got so many kids to come to Texas A&M, especially quarterbacks, because of promises that he couldn't fulfill. I do think Kevin Sumlin's a good hire. I do think he connects with 18-year-olds, and he's a good hire, but I thought that the Navy coach would have been a better hire. Yes, SG1 and College Football Lifer are great. Need to collaborate. All right, I'll look those guys up. We'll see if they would like to come on. Sports Gaming 1, SG1. I assume that has something to do with wagering, and College Football Lifer. So when it comes to my college football picks, you guys probably see those every week, and I just rip them off. So I hope that you guys aren't betting the bankroll on me. So those are just fun, even though I've been pretty effective. So lifetime, I'm pushing 60% against the spread, and I'm around 80, way over 80% picking the game straight up. I looked at my NFL playoff record the other day. I couldn't believe it. I was close to 70% against the spread since 2009. Will the Gators bring in other quarterback options for this season? Well, I can't imagine, in looking at what they currently have, that they, I don't know where they stand in regards to what they signed for the early signing period versus how many spots left for the first week of February to close out the class. But I don't believe so. I do not think so. Could you link up with a college football fantasy football game provider? All right, fantasy football. So I know that fantasy football in college is nothing close to the popularity that it is in the NFL. So I don't know how effective that would be, but I could look into that. I would love to have a college football fantasy league for Mark Rogers TV and invite you guys in, and that would be a ton of fun to have that, to do something like that. That would be great. Do you think Clay Helton will get fired soon? Okay, so Clay Helton came in near the close of 2015. He obviously had a strong 2016. They won 10 consecutive games down the stretch. They won the Rose Bowl. This was still a successful season by most measurements, winning the Pac-12, getting to the Cotton Bowl. I know USC fans, you want a national championship. This guy is not going to get fired after winning the Rose Bowl and winning the Pac-12 championship, regardless of what they do this season, unless it's just completely awful. But USC has a lot of work to do this season in replacing Ronald Jones and Sam Darnold and Deontay Burnett. And I don't expect them, considering their schedule. What's interesting about their schedule is I think that they are a huge favorite to win the Pac-12 South, but to have an exceptional record, most likely is not going to happen. With a trip to Texas, with Notre Dame, and with Stanford on the schedule, I don't know if they have to face Washington this year. I believe they miss Washington again this year. And so 8-4 is probably the deal with USC, but that should be good enough to get to the Pac-12 championship game. Your detailed info with college football fantasy provider could be a good combo. Yes, I would love an 18 playoff. I know that would mean 14 to 16 games for players, but a lot of them are headed off to the NFL, where they play at least 16 games. So an 18 playoff would prepare them. Okay, I've heard much discussion, and I can respect and appreciate the argument made for player safety and for the well-being of the player. This is not all about money and what we want to see in terms of more college football and a little bit of a more fair system. The players have to be protected. But people automatically think that when you go from 4 teams to 8 teams, that that's just a bunch of more games. There are only going to be 2 teams playing an additional there's going to be 4 teams obviously playing an additional game. So anyway, it's not that many more games. Why stop at 8? How long until a 64 team playoff? So Ricky, you were obviously good with 4. The number one reason I believe that we should play an 8-team playoff is because we do not have representation from all 5 leagues. So sure, USC did not look like a team that was capable of competing with the 4 best teams in college football. But they won the Pac-12 conference. And they played one meaningful game outside of the conference, really 2, but in terms of one where they didn't play well and were blown away by Notre Dame, that's just not a big enough sample size for me to say USC can't compete. And I just think because of all these conferences playing in silos and only playing the 1 or 2 games outside of the league that matter against the rest of the Power 5, that there needs to be equal representation, or at least representation. If we have wild cards from the stronger conferences, the second place teams from the better conferences that showed. So, for example, this year it might have been a Wisconsin that only had 1 loss, or it could have been an Alabama that would have been the second team, the wild card, of course. Then I have no issue with that because at least you have representation, even if it's not equal. Top 5 college football head coaches hot seats for 2018. Hot seats 2018. How about just a ranking of college football coaches? 8 is bad. I like 3. Yeah, 3 would be good. 1 gets a bye. All right. What am I missing? Use the existing bowls. Yeah, I really don't want to dive completely into the playoff talk. I wanted to talk more about the channel in particular. So keep that coming. How much longer will Brent Venables remain on Clemson's staff? Yeah, he's amazing. I don't know. I don't know if this guy thinks, okay, I'm a lifetime coordinator. This is what I enjoy doing. I just want football. I just want to coach football. I don't want to deal with media, and I don't want to be a CEO. I just love football. Or is Brent Venables thinking, I'm the Clemson defensive coordinator. I don't have to go to Tulsa, or I don't have to go to Louisiana Monroe to get my first coaching gig as a head coach. I can wait for the right job and I'll get it. So that might be the deal with Brent Venables not moving on yet. Do you think Urban Meyer will give Kevin Wilson more freedom to run the offense this season? I believe that he should give Kevin Wilson more freedom. I think that the offense gets too cute at Ohio State. And when they determined to last season ground and pound, that they were successful. And when they determined to run actual downfield routes, i.e. against Penn State in the fourth quarter, they were successful. Too many bubble screens in this offense, too many slip screens, too many throws behind the line of scrimmage for my liking. I would love to see a lot of J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber in the same backfield at the same time. I think you provide a lot of opportunities and options for the offense. You can do so much with that, and you provide the defense with a lot to think about. Put your picks against the spread at the end of your videos. Okay. Yeah, I will do the math on that and get it to you. It was pretty good this year. I believe I went 140 and 116 against the spread. I'm not going to, I don't know, 140 and 116. That sounds like about 58%. But it was 140 and 116. I'll have to look at that for sure. But yeah, I'll do a video. Maybe I'll do a video and just run down my prediction numbers going way back. I've kept them. I've got them. Prediction results. Got to go. Hope the Irish make the top 25 college players to the NFL video. Wonder if they will. They would all time. No doubt about that. They would make the top, probably the top 5. It's been a bit lean for the Irish recently. Johnny, we appreciate you. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for dropping by. Hype your pick record. Yeah, I probably should do that. Again, I would love to dive into handicapping. It fascinates me. I don't know if you guys had a chance to catch the 2 videos that I shot with Steve Merrill to break down the AFC and NFC championship games. He comes on from Pro Sports Info. I've just caught up with him in the last few weeks. He did the NFL playoffs the week before. We did the Georgia-Alabama game, and I think that's the first video I did with him. But I could ask him questions all day about handicapping. He's an expert. I just dabble in it, and I'm just fascinated by it. Does Mark Richt's best days as a play caller remain in Tallahassee? Should Mark Richt hire badass offensive coordinator Scott Frost type? Well, yeah, if you can find the next Scott Frost, you hire him. Definitely. That's who you get on the staff, because I would like to see Mark Richt with a better quarterback before I make a complete determination on Miami offensively under Mark Richt. Let me back up to make sure that I didn't miss any of these comments. Will the SEC go to a 9-game conference schedule? Oh, what I need to do is unveil my scheduling formula. I keep forgetting to do that. So, in addition to an 18 playoff, which is the logical thing to do because you've got 5 conferences and you can't represent them. And what do you do with the group of 5? You've got to give them representation. You need to schedule differently. So the scheduling process needs to be taken out of the hands of the specific schools. Makes no sense. You take it out of the hands of the schools and you put it into a committee's hands that know football and really don't even give them much say. You make it a formula. So the NFL has a scheduling formula. It's based on where you finished the previous season. Well, I wouldn't go that route, because what the NFL is trying to do is they're trying to prop up the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans and whoever's awful from the year before. Always the Cleveland Browns. Fill in the blank. They're trying to prop up the bad teams, and they're trying to make it difficult for they've got the draft set up that way. 32 all the way to 1 in reverse order, unless there are trades made. And the NFL has created a scheduling system that gives an easier schedule to the bad teams from the previous season, tougher schedule to the good teams. I wouldn't do that because I don't think that's fair. I understand what the NFL is trying to do, but that wouldn't be my intent. My intent would be to try to make equal scheduling. So I will not go into that, but I'll unveil my scheduling formula. It's pretty simplistic, but I think it's at least fair. So this is a scheduling formula just for the non-conference games. But you're right. 9 games needs to be the standard for these conferences. In a perfect world, we would have 10-team conferences, and they would play 9-game conference schedules. Therefore, nobody misses anyone else. Because think about this. In the SEC, Tennessee will always have to play Alabama. Tennessee has had the most difficult non-division schedule in the SEC. I can guarantee it over the last 10 years without looking at it, because Alabama has been by far the best team in the SEC, and Tennessee always has to play Alabama. So they, by sheer definition, has had the most difficult non-division schedule in the SEC East, because they always have to play Alabama. Then they rotate against everyone else. Well, that's not fair. And the best example I have of inequality in scheduling within a conference is this is when LSU was really good and just below Alabama and challenging Alabama. This was near the end of the Les Miles era. This was about 2012, when they were still being considered every year as good as Alabama or close to it. There was a year in which Alabama, of course, played, and so did LSU, everyone in the SEC Western Division. So they only play 2 games on the other side. Well, Alabama plays Tennessee. and LSU plays Florida is their crossover, and then they rotate. In this must have been following the 2012 season. The next season, LSU played Florida and Georgia. Those two teams had a combined 14-2 record the season before in the SEC. Alabama played Tennessee and Kentucky. It's either Kentucky or Vandy. I believe it was Kentucky. Whoever it was, both of those teams had 1-7 records in the SEC the year before. So you're telling me that that's equitable when LSU and Alabama play exactly the same schedule in the division, those 6 games against the other 6 teams. Then the only 2 games that separate their conference schedule, LSU's playing 2 teams that went 14-2 the previous season, and Alabama's playing 2 teams that went 2-14 the previous season. That's why scheduling needs to be completely revamped, and especially out of conference scheduling. All right, what else do we have here? Will SEC ever get rid of the traditional rival game? I don't believe that's going to happen. There's too many of them that mean something. Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn, Georgia, those are the 2 biggies. LSU and Florida, although it's not nationally known, there is a history there. The other ones are just made up. Mississippi State, Kentucky means nothing. Ole Miss and Vandy means nothing. Arkansas, South Carolina certainly means nothing. And now what's the other one? Missouri and Texas A&M is the other crossover that is consistent year to year. Is that correct, or is it Arkansas? No, it's Texas A&M, South Carolina. They match those 2 up for some stupid reason. It should be Texas A&M and Mizzou because they have a history going back to the Big 12. They should do that. But I believe it's Texas A&M, South Carolina, and it's Arkansas and whoever I'm missing on the other side. No, it's Arkansas, South Carolina, Texas. However they've got it, it's 2 of those. I believe it's Arkansas, Mizzou, Texas A&M. Yes, always play South Carolina. That's it. Makes no sense. Are they going to get rid of those? No, because Alabama, Tennessee is too important, and Auburn and Georgia is too important. Fake traditional games skew schedule difficulty. Yes, they do. So we also have that in the ACC, where they want to see Florida State and Miami play each and every year. They want to see Clemson and Georgia Tech play each and every year. The other ones aren't really that important. Duke and Wake, Pitt and Syracuse. Yeah, it's all about Florida State, Miami, and to a lesser extent, Clemson and, of course, Clemson and Georgia Tech. North Carolina State. The ACC wants to preserve that. So I can't see that going away, especially in the SEC. The Big Ten not doing it, except Indiana, Purdue. They have the exception. Did Tennessee offer the head coaching job to Les Miles, and Les Miles get another head coaching job? Or will he? Les Miles could get another head coaching job, but the longer a coach sits on the shelf, the more difficult it typically is for him to get another job. And I got to think that Les Miles is looking for a substantial job. I don't think unless he just has a burning desire to coach, i.e., Howard Schnellenberger, who had coached at Miami, won a national championship in Louisville, and had gone and coached at the highest level, and then near the end of his career coached at Florida Atlantic. Just because he wanted to coach. We see Butch Davis kind of starting over as well. I don't know that Les Miles is willing to do that. All right. Spread prediction at the end of the video with an on-screen graphic touting your prior record. These are great comments. More gambling info might help your channel. When I watched your bowl preview, I wanted to hear you talk more about the spread and what you thought was the wise pick against the spread. Okay. Does Iowa still use pink locker rooms for the visiting team? I haven't heard anything about that in the longest time. I thought about that the other night because I heard that the Cavs, the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA, had done something similar to that when they played Golden State, and it didn't help. significance of Iowa having two coaches in 40 years doesn't happen a lot. So stability means everything in sports. You don't keep a coach around just because, but typically it's the egg before the chicken, chicken before the egg. Stability usually is a precursor to success, and success brings stability. So if you think you've got the right guy, some of the greatest success stories in the NFL and in college football history involve coaches who didn't necessarily get off to a great start, but the administration believed in them. And this is certainly going way back, more so when there was more patience among fan bases and there wasn't the scrutiny of social media and the 24-hour media cycle, where coaches like Woody Hayes at Ohio State, who got off to not the best start in Columbus, was given room to breathe and grow and develop and build his program, and the rest is history. We don't see that as much now. But if you believe that you made the right hire, I think an athletic director should suffer with his guy if he believes that he made the right choice and there's too much given to the whims of these fan bases. Too much. I was disappointed in Cleveland giving up 148 points to OKC today. All right. I regret making my NBA comment. Does J.K. Dobbins have a chance at the Heisman? Well, of course he does. There are going to be other running backs who are going to get the ball more than he does. Mike Weber is a viable option, and he's going to take some carries away. So I would think that Urban Meyer and company want J.K. Dobbins to run an average of 18 times per game. That may not be quite enough, but if he turns into a better pass receiver, more of a Saquon Barkley type of season, in which we saw this past season Saquon throw touchdowns, get involved in the kick return game, and become, I don't want to say great, I don't throw that word around a lot, but an excellent pass receiver, that will never go away. Yes, Iowa, maybe Les Miles should go to Michigan if they ever fire Jim Harbaugh. So that was the big talk going back to, what year was that? 2007. That was Lloyd Carr's last year at Michigan. It was right after Les Miles won the national championship with LSU. And that was actually reported, I believe, by Kirk Herbstreit, and probably his biggest misstep of his career was reporting that Les Miles was taking the Michigan job. That didn't happen. He stayed at LSU. And then, of course, Michigan still is trying to recover from Lloyd Carr's ouster or his decision to leave. Are you on the Lane train? Well, Lane Kiffin. People love Lane Kiffin, don't they? People are enamored with Lane Kiffin. He's got a certain mojo, certain charisma. And I don't get it, because to hear him talk, he doesn't really inspire me. He always sounds like he just got up from a nap. But man, a guy can call plays, can't he? He can match up and run an offense. He knows offensive football. He is one of the best play callers in the game. What is the biggest college football scandal waiting to pop? I don't know. If you know what's out there. You know what obviously happened in college basketball with a scandal that broke several months ago. If it's happening in college basketball, I think that could lead us to believe that it's happening with college football being a much more pressure-packed bubble for these schools, and much more important for all these schools, excluding Duke and Kentucky and a few others, that man, we could have something big break in that direction in college football. I hope not. Thoughts on the Ohio State quarterback race? Who would you pick? I addressed this a little bit earlier. Dwayne Haskins has about a 60-40 shot at this point. He's obviously, I don't want to say proven, because it's 7 pass attempts against Michigan, but 6 of 7. And if you guys recall the 3rd and 15 play, 3rd and 15-ish, down a score, at the big house, taking over, a couple false start penalties, and he ripped off, I don't like to exaggerate this, but an NFL type throw on that particular throw on the slant. It was just tremendous to watch. So Dwayne Haskins has the upper hand. He has shown what he can do under pressure. Is college football recruiting more corrupt than ever? Well, considering just about everything's more corrupt than it used to be, I would think so. We don't hear as much, though. And it's difficult for people to get away with anything in this day and age with everyone walking around with a camera and with all the information out there. So I am a bit encouraged that we don't hear too much mud being thrown around. Is Pat Fitzgerald the most underrated coach in college football? You may have an excellent point there, Ricky. Responsible for 4 10-win seasons at Northwestern, 3 as coach. Yeah. Pat Fitzgerald, when you see Northwestern, and I think the good indication of their talent level is if you notice, even in Northwestern's best seasons, this one might be a little bit of an aberration, but even in their best seasons, when they don't show up and play airtight football and the fundamentals and the techniques are perfectly in place, they get annihilated. So, for example, they had a 10-win team a couple years ago. They were 10-2. They faced Tennessee, who wasn't the most disciplined football team around, but pretty talented with Josh Dobbs in place and Derek Barnett and the rest of them. Josh Smith, Josh Malone, Alvin Kamara, and Tennessee just crushed Northwestern. That's what we see, and that was the same season that Northwestern, despite winning 10 games, also lost to Michigan 30-0. That shows what a great coach Pat Fitzgerald is, because his team, when a team loses like that repeatedly, when they lose, when they face a really good team, that means that you have coached them up, and you can't cross every dot, cross every T, dot every I all the time. And so the talent isn't going to carry you. So when you have those letdowns in terms of fundamentals and blown coverages and things like that happen, you can't make up for it in terms of talent, and you get blown out. Northwestern, for being a good team, has gotten blown out by more good teams than probably any good team in America in recent years. And I'm saying that in a positive vein for Pat Fitzgerald, that shows that they just don't have the talent to keep up. So if they have an off day, they get blown out by a good team. So yes, Pat Fitzgerald is doing an amazing job. I'm surprised the NCAA hasn't punished Baylor for the sexual assault scandal yet. Wow, isn't that a big story? A lot to talk about there. Set up super chat payments via YouTube chat. Give more college football picks against the spread. Man, Swampy McGee. This guy is an idea machine. Super chat payments via YouTube. I've looked at that, and I will look at that some more. Will Harbaugh jump back to the NFL? Eventually, yes. I believe that he will. I would be surprised that he won't. I don't know that the Michigan thing, and I know it's not working out right now, but eventually it probably will. I still don't think it's a lifetime gig for Jim Harbaugh. I think he wants to say, I'm a Michigan man. I came in, I fixed it. We won a championship. Not that he's going to leave immediately after they win a national championship, if they do. But I think he wants that satisfaction that I came back home and I corrected what was wrong and I put Michigan back where it's supposed to be. And maybe he'll bask in that for a couple seasons and then say, he's going to wait for a good job or a good situation, maybe not necessarily a good team in the NFL, but a good situation where he loves the organization and believes they're going to give him what he needs to win. And then he's going to say, see ya. I believe that to be so. Swampy McGee, yes. Great ideas. I hope that I'm getting all of them down here. Kansas keeping a 3-33 coach around. I tell you, Ricky, Kansas can be better than this. So I think we give Kansas a bit of a bye. We give them a pass on being this awful and just assume that this is the way they are. And isn't it cute? It's atrocious, and they can do better. Yes, it's a difficult place to win, but so is Kansas State. So is Iowa State. So is Purdue for certain reasons, difficult to win, but it's been done and it can be done. So yes, Kansas can win with the right coach. And this is the administration, and this is the athletic department, athletic director. I'm not familiar with their current athletic director and what the history has been there, but they obviously haven't made good hires. It's difficult, but it can be done at Kansas. Yes. I'm thinking the guy, David Beatty, has one more year. I can't imagine that he's going to go through 1-11 or 2-10 and survive. If that's the case, then there have to be just outstanding circumstances involved, or they really, truly just don't care there. But everybody cares about football. Even the basketball schools care about football because the TV money in football, even for the basketball schools, trumps the basketball income. Duke gets so much more money from ACC football media contracts and from the national contracts with ABC and with ESPN that anything the Duke basketball team can come up with. The ratings for the two sports aren't comparable. Now, the NCAA basketball tournament's another deal. That's a cash cow. Wasn't Kansas at one point number 2 in the country back in 2007 with, of course, Todd Reesing at quarterback. Kansas, it wasn't even though a situation in which they were exposed at the time. They actually showed up in the bowl game, the Orange Bowl, against it's either Virginia Tech. It had to be Virginia Tech. And they won that game. Kansas won the Orange Bowl that year. Stephen Carr can be the next head man. I'm guessing that's Heisman, Luke, the Heisman winner for USC. Yes, there we got it. The correction right below. Yes, Stephen Carr can win a Heisman. For anybody who missed USC last season and want to see Stephen Carr, put in the Stanford game, let her roll, and watch him run. Stephen Carr's legit. Zion Williamson college hoop commit prediction coming out at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Well, we thank you, Swampy McGee. Clemson, South Carolina, Duke, Kansas, North Carolina, Kentucky. I used to love college football or college basketball, and I watched it quite a bit. I just can't really stomach the regular season. I don't know what's going on. I watch the tournament. I'll catch like the end of the conference tournaments to get me warmed up for the NCAA tournament, but I'm still watching spring football and getting into that. So also wanted to let you guys know, because it's questioned from time to time what my experience is. And that doesn't mean my experience is great, but this is what it is. So I graduated from Kent State University with a broadcast journalism degree. Always wanted to be a sportscaster, wanted to be a sports writer or a sportscaster. Appreciate that, Swampy. So my first job was in Ashland, Ohio at a station, WNCO, and I was a news anchor. Funny story here. I walk into the station. My dad was just a great dad, and he wanted me so much to get my broadcasting job and fulfill my dream and get started on my career, and also wanted me out of the house and making my own money because I was working at a grocery store. Anyway, this is just out of college. So I was going around to small television stations in the area in Ohio and Pennsylvania, West Virginia. And I stopped in a radio television station at 22 years old and was telling all these general managers at these various stations that I wanted to be a sportscaster, and here's my resume and my audition tape. So I had worked at the campus TV station and radio station and had a couple internships at a local ABC station and did some sideline reporting. And I will get to the questions in just a second. I'm going to bore you with my quick career story. So I eventually got this job as a news anchor and reporter, even though I told the station manager before I knew that there was an opening that I hated and despised news. So I'm sitting talking to the station manager, and I'm talking up sports, and I love sports, and that's what I want to do. And he asked, "What do you think of news?" And I said, "I despise news. I hate it." "Well, we've got a news anchor reporter opening." So I needed a job and needed to get started in the industry. So I took the job and asked him later, "Why in the world would you hire me to be your news anchor and reporter when I told you I despised the news?" And he said, "Well, you read the teleprompter better than anyone else." So anyway, that was my first job at WNCO. And in addition to doing news, I did play-by-play for Ashland University football and basketball and high school football and basketball. That was for 3 years. Then I went south to Mississippi, and I was at a CBS station, WCBI, for 6 years as the sports director there. I did the 5, the 6, and the 10 weeknights, and that was fun covering the SEC. And I'll make mention of that from time to time when I have on, like recently, Matt Wyatt, who was the quarterback at Mississippi State in 1997, 98, in that range. We had a great discussion, and we connected for the first time since way back in the late 90s. And I was at WCBI, Columbus, Mississippi, for 6 years. I was out of the business for about a year and a half, and then I got a job at ESPN. And ever since, I've been kicked around a couple different jobs, but within the same department. And I'm a production operations manager at ESPN. So that's what I do full time. All right, and do this on the side. And I've had a couple stints on ESPN.com doing some anchoring and reporting, not reporting so much, I shouldn't say that, play-by-play and voiceover work for highlight packages there. So just a number of people have alluded to my past or poke holes in my credibility. All right, wasn't Kansas at one point number 2 in the country? Mark Rogers, you do great work. Thank you so much. Do you know the Ohio State is 8-0 in Big Ten play so far? Oh, in the Big Ten in basketball, yes. Which famous college football coach was at Kent State when the 1970 campus shooting happened? I'm guessing that would be one Nick Saban, I believe. Or Lou Holtz, or both. Probably Saban. Holtz would be too old for that. He would have been gone at that point. But Lou Holtz, Nick Saban, both graduates of Kent State University. Who is your college football team? I get this asked this all the time. What do you like most and least about ESPN? So I got to watch what I say about my employer. So I can't be critical on here. But yes, ESPN has been great to me. Great place to work. You know, I'm in the middle of production work there, all the studio shows and the production that goes on there. So it's very interesting, and the company's great to me. So I've been there for 16 years and enjoy it. This is my passion, providing college football analysis, though. So this is my outlet and something that I'm trying to blow up big. Yes, Nick Saban, my college football team. All right. So before I tell you, I want you guys to know that I try to cut this as unbiasedly as I possibly can, and I hope that shows through. And just you guys needing to ask me my favorite college football team, I hope that you understand that it's my intent, it's my hope and my approach to be as fair, neutral, and unbiased as I possibly can be. So I grew up an Ohio State fan. That's where I'm from. Love the Buckeyes, and that's my team. There you have it. So that's who I root for. But again, I hope if you go through the analysis and the teams, I've even had a ton of people comment in the past that I've been too hard on Ohio State. And that makes me feel good because I think, okay, they can't tell that I'm rooting for Ohio State. So there it is. And that's my team. So just wanted to come on here tonight. I don't know if there's anything else we can talk about. I did want to let you know that, of course, we're going to hit recruiting. I talked about the top 25 list that I'm releasing on the top colleges and producing NFL talent. We're going to talk position battles heading into the spring, coaching changes, of course, and the analysis there. I'm going to rank throughout the offseason the top 10 at every position in college football. Hope to get to the top 5 in each conference at every position. I'll do my conference breakdown, which I rate and rank all the conferences. And some of you have alluded to that and want to see that because you've seen it in previous off seasons. And I have a whole lot of fun doing that. And trying to think of what else we'll hit on here in the next few weeks. There's a few other things that come to mind, and I've lost them completely. But I have jotted down a lot of your suggestions here. And I just want to provide the best content possible. And I want to make this interactive and engaging like we have tonight. Will the Indians win the World Series next year? I sure hope so. Why did Urban Meyer leave Florida? But I'm afraid that the Indians have missed their window. Why did Urban Meyer leave Florida? You know, there's certain conjecture that he believed that he accomplished as much as he possibly could there, and that he was feeling as though, you know, he had a certain status at Florida and that he couldn't maintain that. He did have one down year. That was right after he had announced his resignation. Then he came back for that final season. They beat Penn State in a bowl game, but otherwise it was a mediocre campaign at 8-5. And maybe he just thought, okay, things can only go downhill from here. I've won 2 national championships in 4 years. It can only go downhill. Maybe he also thought, maybe that was the complete thought, or maybe that was combined with legitimate, I know there's questions here, but legitimate health issues. And then, of course, he got his dream job at Ohio State. All right. Appreciate the feedback tonight. I know that we haven't had a ton of people on here, but you guys are hardcore and have hung with me here. So I appreciate that. I want to deliver the best that I possibly can. I think you guys understand and appreciate the work that goes into this, but also understand and appreciate that I'm doing my best to deliver what I can. I try to even out the analysis again across the board in college football, but I know it's a little heavy. USC, Miami, Ohio State, Alabama, because that's where I've got the contacts. Florida, Tennessee to a certain extent, Michigan I've delivered on. So I want to get Michigan State and Wisconsin and Florida State and NC State and some of these teams that are difficult to hit at times. The other part of this is that I get bigger viewership when I go to USC and Miami and Ohio State and some others. And that's the other thing I've got to think about. There's a lot of fun topics and discussions out there, like Washington State. There's a guy that I've had on several times, and he contacts me all the time to come on and talk Washington State, and he does a nice job. Nobody watches Washington State. And that doesn't mean that there aren't Washington State fans out there. They just haven't found me. So I produce a Washington State video, and this comes out after having a 45-minute discussion and breaking down all the videos and editing. And I'm getting like 22 views per video on Washington State. So unfortunately, I have to be wiser with my time moving forward. If you read his book, Above the Line, then he kind of talks about why he left Florida. 2018 NFL mock draft, who will be picked first. So you also may know from watching me at this point last year that my NFL draft coverage was just all over the place. We had in a number of not just our current typical contributors on college football, but brought in a lot of NFL guys to talk the NFL draft. So we hope to do the same this season, but we had a ton of NFL draft coverage for you last year. Did Mike Leach do something mean to Washington State's quarterback? Well, that's obviously a very touchy and sacred type subject. I won't deal with that suicide situation. That's very unfortunate. Was Iowa's performance 55-24 a fluke? Can they play that well consistently. Was it a fluke? Well, they got out there for 3.5 hours against Ohio State and performed that well. I don't think it was a fluke, but I think it was a situation in which Ohio State turned in a D game and Iowa a near A plus flawless game. If those two teams get on the same field 10 times, Ohio State wins 8 or 9, and they lose the 1 or 2 games by that 55-24 game might have been a 1 in 100 shot. But it happened, and that's what happened and killed Ohio State this year and was the most talked about game in college football this year. If you talk to any college football fan, you guys don't remember scores very often, do you? But everyone brought up 31 points. Iowa crushed Ohio State. That was the one game that just defined the college football season, I believe, more than any other. So again, I invite you to make your comment in regards to your suggestions for content, and I will try to deliver as much as possible. We're working on the top 25 videos, and I will get to the conference rankings very, very soon, and some of these other suggestions. NFL picks against the spread for Sunday's games. Watch the videos that I just released with Steve Merrill, and he talks around it a lot, so I don't know that he wants to give away his picks. You have to go to Pro Sports Info for his picks. I release my picks every Sunday afternoon on Twitter. So instead of producing a video, I just tweet them out a few minutes before the game. Right now, I'm 5-3 against the spread. The Saints hurt me. I would be 6-2, but I had the Saints minus. I guess I could consider that a push. I considered it a loss because I had New Orleans plus the 5. Of course, with the Vikings play at the end of the game, they won by 5. So I'll give myself a pass at 5-2-1 against the spread, but I consider it a loss. Do you think Ohio State, USC could have beaten Ohio State? Of course. Sure. If they would play more than once, USC certainly capable of beating Ohio State. That game proved more than anything that Ohio State's decidedly better than USC in the trenches. On both lines of scrimmage, Ohio State was the far superior team, but USC definitely has enough talent on the right day to beat Ohio State. I'm guessing if they played 10 times, and this is how I look at it most of the time when people bring up games, could this team beat that team? I like to think about it over the course of time because Pitt beat Clemson 2 years ago, and we could all fill in the blank on a number of results, Iowa, Ohio State, that don't seem to make sense on a particular Saturday. So a lot of things could happen in one time on one particular day. But Clemson's not losing to Pitt most of the time. They're not losing to Pitt 20% of the time. Pitt beat them in 2016, to their credit, and that was the game result that mattered. Clemson wins that game 90% of the time. So I like to deal with probabilities, and that's what I did in predicting game outcomes for this season, was look at probabilities. Are corrupt politicians linked in with corrupt college football boosters? I sure hope not. I think they have more influential people to be dealing with than that for their own gain in the political game. Okay, I'm Mark of Mark Rogers TV. And again, I'm trying to really take a hard look at my channel over the next few weeks and possibly make some changes, maybe a name change. As I mentioned off the top, I hate to get away from Mark Rogers TV, but for the purpose of search engines and trying to grow the audience and the influence, maybe that's what I need to do. I appreciate you guys jumping on board. I don't know how many we had total. We'll see once we post how many viewers came through the chat. Penn State a cover-up. Swampy McGee continues to throw out some heavy topics. And Valdez, should Jalen Hurts and Malik Rozier both transfer and look for playing time somewhere else? I think they both need to compete this spring and then see where they believe they stand and have a difficult discussion with the coaching staff. And if those two athletes, especially Jalen Hurts, is thinking like a businessman for down the road, then he may want to think about doing what Braxton Miller did. Now, an injury played into the Braxton Miller decision, but for Jalen Hurts, he's not going to make $1 playing football, playing quarterback in the NFL, regardless of Tua Tagovailoa showing up and taking his job. Jalen Hurts wasn't going to play NFL quarterback. So could he play slot receiver or something else? Probably. So he might want to think about down the road. Now, if he's got his heart set on playing quarterback, maybe that's at the University of Alabama in situational football, in situational spots. And as the backup, you're only one play away. But if he wants to play on a regular basis, he most likely is going to have to go somewhere else, or he can stay at Alabama, depending on the competition, at slot receiver and other places, and determine whether he wants to make a position transition. All right, Matt Campbell, can he turn around Iowa State into a power? My Cyclone friends think not. Not so fast, I say. So it sounds like your Cyclone friends believe Matt Campbell can pull it off. Well, he's certainly in the best conference to pull that off. I don't believe that the Big 12 is currently the weakest conference. I believe that's the Pac-12. But overall, he's in the best conference to try to break through to the upper echelon, because really only Oklahoma and Texas have the type of recruiting base and resources to be dominant powers year after year after year. And we've seen what Texas has been unable to do for a number of years. It's only been Oklahoma, and then you get the jump from Oklahoma State and TCU. So Matt Campbell's in the right conference to pull that off at Iowa State. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here, but I appreciate you joining me for the last, whatever it's been. It's been forever. We've been on here for about an hour and a half talking up my channel, and certainly send me your ideas at any time, and I will implement as many as possible. If you don't see some implemented right away or at all, that doesn't mean I haven't considered them. It's a matter of time and strategy in trying to build this out. So I appreciate the time, and certainly stay tuned for more videos coming your way, even tonight, as I continue the top 25 list of colleges producing NFL talent, and a number of other discussions I've had recently with bloggers from Michigan and elsewhere, and I will release those very soon. You guys take care. I appreciate it, and thanks so much for the support.